Good morning, Patrick Peace here, doing a book review of Tomorrow's God, Our Greatest Spiritual Challenge by Neale Donald Walsch. I did a previous video after I had read the first couple of chapters, and it was hard to get into it because of the format. It's a conversation style. He's done a bunch of books in that style. It says he's the New York best-selling author of Conversations with God. I didn't read that book. This is the first book of his that I've read, and so it was a little difficult to get over that conversation style. However, having now finished the book, I can recommend it. I didn't think I would be able to when I first started it. I thought, oh, it's new agey and just too esoteric for my taste and all that kind of thing. But it actually grew on me as I read through it. I didn't do a chapter by chapter review on this one, simply because I felt that it flowed too well, and it would better to just do a summary. The most important thing I would say about it is that he does not deny Christ. In fact, he does endorse Jesus Christ in the book, and so for that reason alone, I would accept it as part of my library. But that's only one small portion of the book. The most remarkable part of the book that I found was that even though it's published in 2003, 2004 timeframe, he quite accurately predicts what we're experiencing right now with the implementation of globalism. And he talks about he basically talks about the breakdown of capitalism. He's saying that in the future, 3 or 4 families will share one a vacuum cleaner, right? And 3 or 4 families will share a single washer and dryer appliances. And so he's talking about, I believe in chapter 18, 19 area, he's talking about how his predictions for the future. He really gets into predicting the future in the later chapters. It really starts to roll around chapter 18. And he says that in the future, capitalism will fail, and it'll be replaced by. He stays away from the C. He uses the word collective as the term for the future state of humanity. He neglects to talk about the anything to do with kleptocracy or anything to do with the existing established mega corporations. So that might leave the reader a little bit scratching their head. Hey, this is not a great deal for the people on the bottom, for the peasantry. However, we do see that evolving and happening, and I personally believe it's nothing to be afraid of, because we've been praying for 2,000 years for God's kingdom to come, and the original apostles lived themselves under a collective condition, using the safer C word, not using the C word that's associated with, that massive country in the East. I won't use that word. But that's, so he was right on the money in that prediction. So that's quite impressive. But a couple of points I'd like to point out without spoiling it or without giving any spoilers. He has 9 conditions that he considers to be characteristic of what he calls tomorrow's God. And his really tomorrow's God, it could be, the title could be what I hope God will be like in the future, or what I hope will be the perception of God in the future. So I respect him 100% as a theist, right? He's definitely a very a passionate theist, and for that reason alone, along with the one I mentioned previously, I would certainly recommend the book. But I would be careful, because there's a lot of things in here that could also send you off on incorrect direction. He'll have things one right beside each other, where one thing is correct and the other thing is like way out, way off. So that's the risk you got to take, right? You got to keep the good and throw out the bad. I'm not going to mention any of those 9 points that he makes because that's, his copyright. He's got the book on that. But they're worth looking into, worth examining. And he also gives reference to many, many titles and the authors' names. And so a lot of them are obviously New Age titles. Some of them I've read, but it's nice of him to give credit to many other titles. And he also comes clean and confesses that it's a conversation with himself. So he doesn't make any, metaphysical claims to the conversation that he's having. He's saying, yes, I admit it's a conversation with myself. I acknowledge that. However, he says you can look at it in this way. God controls everything. He's in all of us. He's directing my thoughts now. So this conversation is in essence a conversation with God. So I get that, and I definitely give him full quarter for that, the way that he comments in that way. And there's a few comments that I'd like to point out. That he has some really, really excellent quotes. So I hope it's okay for me to pull out just a few quotes out of the book to give you a little bit of a taste for it. And it may help you. Chapter 18, he starts talking about how important it is to take care of yourself, right? He says, take care of your physical health, be careful what you eat, what you feed on, and all that kind of stuff. So very encouraging, valuable stuff. I like a quote that jumps out at me later in the book as well. It says, the problem with the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat. And I just thought that was excellent. And now he does mention also, he gives a little bit of a taste of his own personal out-of-body experience. I wish he would have given more details on that. But he does mention that he had an out-of-body experience on 3 different occasions. And he mentions one occasion where he gives a little bit of detail of it, but in keeping with the idea of keeping your miracle for yourself. Remember, Jesus said, you've experienced a miracle, now keep it private, because if you share it with people, it kind of takes away from the miracle. And he kind of respects that. He doesn't mention that, but I'm thinking that out loud myself. And he does kind of follow the respect for the miracles that he's experienced. But he's obviously had some very deep and profound spiritual experiences, which are actually quite exciting. And I'll just share one more. I took a lot of quotes out of it that I'm going to save and just keep in my notes, which are worthwhile for meditation and introspection and encouragement towards enlightenment, if you want to call it that, encouragement towards peaceful relationship to God. And one more that I'll mention near the end is that he says, I'm enlightened because I've realized that enlightenment is knowing that there's nothing you have to do to be enlightened. I'll repeat it one more time. It's a little bit tricky. I'm enlightened because I've realized that enlightenment is knowing that there's nothing you have to do to be enlightened. And he mentions Buddha, the Buddha just saying, I'm going to sit under this tree until I get enlightenment. And eventually just says, he gets fed up and says, okay, I'm enlightened. So that's sort of one way that a lot of these gurus, and he does mention a lot of different gurus, he goes through them. And yeah, a lot of times that's basically what enlightenment is the declaration of enlightenment. So I don't think I'm going to follow that tack myself, especially based on the amount of baggage that I have and the amount of buttons that I have that can easily be pushed, etc. So I'll save that maybe for when I'm old and have a long flowing white beard, and then I'll say, hey, I'm enlightened. But yeah, it was very, very good. And there's a number of other quotes, but I'm not gonna steal his thunder, and I'm gonna let them stand for themselves. But I enjoyed it. It grew on me. It's not something I would recommend to somebody that hasn't read any motivational literature before, or who hasn't read any other New Age type literature or Enlightenment based literature, or who hasn't read any scripture before, because there's too much in here that I think could just send you off on a wild goose chase. And so I have to leave with that caveat that there is some pretty serious, dangerous ideas in here, which I'm not going to get into. I'll leave that for the reader. But the parts that I enjoyed and the parts that were good, I definitely found certainly worthwhile. It's a quite a lengthy read, but because of the spacing of the text, you can go through it quite quickly. You could probably read this in under a week for sure, maybe 2 or 3 days if you're a really aggressive reader. It's about 390 pages, but it's not a difficult read by any means. You can really take big chunks at a time. So quite a pleasant book, and that's my review. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope there's more books that I can move on to that would be helpful to me and to you. Thank you for watching. God bless you. I love you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care now. Bye-bye.